12th of April 2024. Welcome to Red Dot Rants, the comedy and tragedy of living in Singapore. A Malaysian woman who learned how to perform dental procedures on herself from YouTube videos during the COVID-19 pandemic began offering such services to customers in Singapore. Operating from hotel rooms in Singapore, she performed procedures such as the maintenance of braces and veneer application. She finally got busted when a disgruntled customer reported to the authorities that she could not floss her teeth after having veneers put in by a dentist operating from a hotel room. Now, as it turned out, the hotel dentist is a 37-year-old Malaysian part-time waitress from JB. She was fined $2,500 by a district court on the 8th of April after pleading guilty to one count under the Dental Registration Act, with a second similar charge taken into consideration. When cosplaying as a dentist, she advertised her services on a carousel account, quoting prices between 650 to 700 Singapore dollars, not ringgit, for various procedures. She would enter Singapore on short-term visit passes to provide these services at atas hotels under the Hilton brand, successfully passing off as a Malaysian dentist. In total, she provided composite veneers to about 20 customers, performed braces maintenance on about 10 customers, and provided cosmetic braces, which I think mean aligners, to at least one customer. What's the public's reaction? Let's take a look at some of the interesting comments. Andrew Somerville is impressed by this woman's talent. She seemed to have mastered dentistry in a fraction of the time that students near the top of their JC cohort in Singapore take 4 years to learn. Dino Bear says, we should be rewarding this. Chen Yen Chong says, she should be awarded for her courage. Lin Ming Lee asked, why should anyone go to Carousel for medical or dental services? And Lawrence Lim replies to that saying it's because dental services cost an arm and a leg in Singapore. In that case, how about letting our JB waitress cosplay on your wisdom tooth? It's an open secret. Many members of the public are going for cheap dental procedures advertised on Instagram and similar platforms. JB Waitress is just one of those who got caught. I believe there are dozens of others who are still operating. Some of them are even happily residing in Singapore. Without a disgruntled customer who lodged a complaint, JB Waitress might have never been caught. They have so many supporters out there. Meanwhile, the real dentists pay licensing fees. The funny thing is that when you add these fees up, they may not be lower than the $2,500 fine. There is also compulsory continuing education for our dental professionals. Take a look at the ticket price for this upcoming dental conference at MBS. Dental clinics are also subjected to stringent inspections, providing emergency drugs and equipment, the sterilization of instruments, which can be challenging in a hotel room, don't come cheap. Without being shackled by all these obligations and the cost of formal dental education, the one charging lower could be earning more. When the authorities keep tightening up on regulations, they are ostensibly protecting the public while inadvertently increasing the financial and administrative burden on registered dentists. The tragic irony here is members of the public are seeing YouTube-taught dentists and practitioners outside the regulatory framework. Next, I can't get enough of Mr. Tan Kin Lian, even though he has blocked me. Now, to be fair, I like the way Mr. Tan connects with the common people, sharing cost-saving tips and calling out wastage. Unlike a lot of hypocritical Umau, Mr. Tan puts his money where his mouth is, and I respect him for that. However, I'm often blown away by his narrow and simple-minded view of the current geopolitical divide. In a recent post, he heaped praises on the CCP for alleviating poverty in China, and he even attributes China's economic success solely to the party, forgetting that it's only after 2001, when China joined the WTO, that its economy really took off. Then someone reminded Mr. Tan of the Great Famine and the Cultural Revolution. I suspect he might get blocked next. Mr. Tan argued against commonly known historical facts, claiming that these disasters were caused by US sanctions, and he doesn't trust the so-called Western media. Well, in the 1962's 7,000人大会, Liu Shaoqi famously attributed the Great Famine to 三分天灾,七分人祸, an admission that would lead to an ultimate act of revenge from Mao Zedong in the form of the Cultural Revolution. These events are documented in far greater and gorier detail than any Western media in two of retired Xinhua Agency journalist Yang Jisheng's books entitled 墓碑 and 天翻地覆. Why was the Gang of Four executed? Because rightly or wrongly, they were held responsible for Mao's disastrous policies. At a time when Chinese society was more enlightened, even they didn't come up with lame excuses to blame the horrors of the two great disasters on the West. Mr. Tan would have outdone the propagandists back then. Seriously, I'm speechless. I thought he had been showing everyone how to use ChatGPT. And Mr. Tan doesn't seem aware that under a system like China's, he would never have had a chance to contest a presidential election. That is his biggest contradiction. Next, a little comedy. This video has been making its rounds on social media, and I'm sure those who are not sleeping will get the message.
Hello， 人西
啊，车人西啊？
你人西哥哥是无？
是啊，你车人西啊？
恁老兄欠我你伫遮兴？
哈，
这准啊，多咯？
我准啊，不到，唔是不是我拿帮过？
无到啊，是帮我讲好势。
我歹势，我今日我拿后准你咧。
那边你像我是讲实，你拿多咯这阵？
sorry，我拿后港 Avenue 10咧。
哇，你讲生笑是无？上好是卖兴卖你啊，对不对？跟你讲。
I will never lie 哇。
On a more serious note, former NMP Wiswa Sadasivan interviewed former PAP MP Inderjit Singh to pick its brains on the upcoming general election. I think we can all agree that we'll have a new PM very soon, and the next GE should be announced before the end of the year. As Mr. Inderjit mentioned, the incumbent thrives on crisis and the insecurity of young couples with children. However, this didn't quite work out during the last election, with COVID as the crisis and Sengkang GRC as the young couples with children factor. Does it mean that the popularity of the ruling party has declined? I have a slightly different explanation. COVID kept people in their homes. Many actually got fitter and slimmer from exercise. My blog saw its highest traffic and my ebooks sold better than ever. People had time to read, to sit back and think without the distraction of the daily grind. That, I think, is the most important factor resulting in the loss of Sengkang GRC. What really helps the ruling party stay in power is the level of apathy among Singaporeans. From my observation of people in their 20s and 30s nowadays, the mediocre youngsters, the majority, they lack drive, ambition, and the desire to ask questions. Many of these young voters have no interest in serious discussions. They eat very simply, sleep very little, and are addicted to online games, Taylor Swift music, and other indulgences to keep their minds off social political issues. For these young voters, as long as their needs are met, they are happy. For the elderly baby boomers like me, many of whom have already reached their full potential, there's really not much we can do or worry about. As a poor and struggling writer, I may be an exception, as most of my peers have already paid off their mortgages and are quite ready to retire. Are they as happy as what Inderjit claims? Sure, you see a lot of complaints on social media about paying $14 for a zap cai peng. But at the same time, how many of these folks secretly hope and pray that they could hold the keys to a $1 million HDB flat? Social media is public. Voting is secret. People are not kept in their homes this time round. Even retired folks like Mr Tan Kin Lian obviously doesn't read much. From thousands of visitors every day, my blog traffic has died down to less than 20 a day, and my books are not moving at all. It's really not my wish to be a YouTuber. Anyway, I doubt the needle mentioned by Wiswa is going to move much. The results are foreseeable and they don't really matter to the majority. That's all I have for you now. Leave your comments and I'll see you again soon.